Everybody, welcome back to the Purplatypus is the name. Welcome to another Path of Exile 2 video. So, you probably saw, if you're watching this, my last video about Path of Exile. I was kind of going over my Infernalist build, I think, and that was my first initial build. So I kind of decided that I don't want to go super into the late game. I do want to beat pinnacle bosses on easier difficulties and stuff, but really as a new PoE player, I care more about just playing all of the different archetypes, not all of them, but playing a bunch of different archetypes to kind of learn different mechanics of the game. How does burn versus shock and like ignite and all? I kind of want to learn the game. And so I found playing more classes to be more fun than that. So I just today or last night, I got through the campaign as my second character and started doing the end game. And that is as my warrior. Kind of a combination of a couple things here. It's a totem warrior, and the reason I went totems is because it felt like a half step away from minions without being a full step away from minions. So I'm gonna kind of show you what I did, and then we'll give you a visual example of the combat effectiveness of this. Now, before we get into the build, there is a few notes that I think are important regarding it. This build, I think, is if this is your first time playing the game, in your first character, I don't think this is going to be a good first character. It was relatively, the itemization is relatively difficult to increase your damage, because you need to get a bunch of things with a bunch of skill ups, otherwise your damage just kind of sucks. And so I did a bunch of trading in this. I've probably spent 30 exalted or something like that over the course of level 1 to now where I'm at level 73. So I've probably spent around 30 exalted orbs just getting like relatively cheap gear. But if you have no currency and you can't trade, then I think this will be kind of tough for you. Also, just to get the downsides out of the way, I am not, again, the best at the game. So my tankiness is pretty low. My armor is at 54%, which is low, and my resistances, I just got to maps. I've done like 5 or 6 maps, and so I'm not quite where I want to be yet. I'm still working on it, of course, and I'll get there. So this is a build that it doesn't really need to put themselves in danger. I would say this is a safer build than even the minion witch, honestly, but you are in danger of getting one shot. Now, I haven't actually been one shot yet, but I've been really close a lot. The campaign was very easy for me. So the main downsides of this build right now is that because you're not using energy shields, you just don't have a relatively high HP pool, right? There's not a lot of ways to scale HP where there is an entire, quarter of the skill tree dedicated to scaling energy shield. And armor doesn't seem to be that good. It seems to be fine. Now, I'm sure there are some key passive nodes that I haven't gotten that will increase my survivability, but right now, I'm not super tanky, even though as a warrior, I feel like I'm actually the least tanky class out of the ones that I've played. And I also have semi-mana issues. I have 826 mana because I've kind of geared for it. But my main spell, Shockwave Totem, costs 227 mana. So I only get to cast this a couple times and then follow it up with like an Earthquake. And then during boss fights, I'm using potions. On the overworld, I am still using potions quite a bit. So slight mana problems, slight survivability problems. But outside of that, let's talk about the good. So, one, this is a 2-button build. So it is actually pretty darn simple, right? You got button 1 and you got button 2. That's all you're going to need. So this is one of the safest builds in the game because it has just so much area of effect. Now, I do have a 5 slot here on my Shockwave Totem. I have a bunch of things equipped. These are all honestly optional. They're just because I had Spirit. And then these I literally don't use. I could unequip these, but at this point, I just don't really care. So, Earthquake, basically what you want to do here. So, the reason we're using Earthquake at all, and not just Shockwave Totem, is Shockwave Totem, when it hits jagged ground, it erupts them and deals damage. And what's important is it deals damage based off the Shockwave Totem's damage, right? It does 106% of its own damage. So, it's actually scaling. When you use Earthquake, the fact that this generates and it blows up isn't necessarily a good thing. It just at the ground lets the Shockwave Totem deal extra hits, basically, every time it goes off. And so for Earthquake, the only thing we care about is extending the duration of it, right? You want to have increased duration, increased duration, increased duration. So I have 50% increased duration here and 40% increased duration there. I think it brings it up to a solid 8 seconds. It says we could have up to 6 of these patches, by the way. We don't need 6. I don't even know how I'd possibly get to 6. Maybe if you could do like a multi-strike projectile thing, but because the area is so big, the jagged ground, you can't put jagged ground directly on top of jagged ground, and it lasts 8.4 seconds. But yeah, you could do something like this and then run over here and do this. And on some bosses, I'll do that, but like by the time you do that, you spend a lot of your mana. And this is very powerful, by the way, when you get all of these going, because when your totem goes off, it'll explode each of them individually, right? And so you'll actually be getting an extra 300% per active totem. So that is the main idea of the skills, right? We're just going to be throwing these around, and then we are going to be smashing the ground with this when we need additional damage, because this actually explodes it, right? So if you put this next to this, you'll see that there's that extra visual effect, and it's actually a way to get a deceptively large amount of range, because if you put this all the way out here and you put this like out here, like you could hit from out here all the way to out here, right? So you get an insane amount of range, which is why this is, I think, such a safe build. Now for the main bread and butter of the ability, what we're doing here, there's a couple optional gems, and I have a couple extra here that I'll switch in and out depending on the situation. 35% more physical damage. This only does physical damage, so I just always keep this on. The 120% modifier does suck, but I mean, if you look at the damage here, right, it's so huge. It goes from 9,000 to 11,000. This one is more of a late game thing over abundance. Because your mana costs are so high, you usually aren't casting a bunch of these, so having twice the duration, going from 6 seconds to 12 seconds, is actually pretty darn valuable. So I would, for the most of the game, I wouldn't use this. And as you get into late Cruel, I think you start solving your mana problems enough where you can start using this and getting 4 up pretty consistently. I am using 40% less cost. This one is obviously temporary. Once I'm able to solve my resistances and solve my armor, then I will go and I will attempt to start solving the mana. If I'm not able to solve the mana, then I will keep this on. Because without this goes up to 378. With it goes down to 227, right? And again, I wouldn't be able to cast this 3 times with this off. 80% increased totem placement speed. So these last two are the flex slots that I currently use. These are for when I'm fighting waves or yellow monsters, and then when I go to bosses, I switch out over here. So increased placement speed is actually super important. Like if you just look here, like that's fine speed, but the 80% is so good for when they're just monsters that come out of nowhere, right? They will just come out of nowhere and they'll kill you, and this lets you get up your defenses pretty darn fast. Then we have supported skills have a 40% greater area of effect. This is, how many attacks do you actually get? 1, 2, 3, almost 4. If we get actually a little bit more attack speed, that might make that way more powerful. But 40% more area of attack, just to really make it so, like, you know, you can see how big this range is again, right? It hits really far away. So again, that's mostly for clearing mobs. Now, once we get into a boss fight, you could do the supported skills have a chance to create jagged ground. This is one that I don't use that frequently. It just lets you, so you don't need to use earthquake ever, basically, because they will cause these to create their own jagged ground, which causes them to deal more damage. But I feel like just using earthquake, I'm not fully sure how this synergy works. I don't use it that much, but it is something that is pretty good, especially early on, I feel like. However, number 1 here is concentrated effect, and then devastate. Devastate is when you fully break an enemy's armor when you inflict heavy stun. When you have a bunch of these things going off, I don't have that much stun build up, but I usually can get 1 stun in a boss fight before they die. And to fully break their armor just increases your damage by, I don't know what the amount is, but it's noticeable, because they are doing 100% physical damage. So usually I'll throw this in instead of the placement speed. And I will also throw in the extra 40% damage. So look, we're at 11,000 damage here, and we go up to 15,000 damage there, right? And this is, again, this is only a level 16 gem. It can go up to like level 20. We're getting 13 levels from global modifiers, which is why I want to get to, I think this build is actually so strong damage wise. I'm sure it's not like broken, like there's no like exploits here or anything, but like it just seems very, very solid. So you can roll a melee. This counts as a melee skill. What's very interesting about this skill is that it feels like a spell in the sense that it doesn't scale off your weapons, but it's not a spell. It scales mostly off the level of the gem, but it's an attack that has its own scaling weapon. So even though it acts like a spell and looks like a spell, it's an attack, and it's a melee attack, and it's a slam attack, and it's a physical attack. So anything that increases your attack or your AoE damage is going to scale this. And when you get skill gems, it's going to be crazy. So If you look here, my weapons are basically going to be 4 to level of all melee skills, and another one over here, 4 to the level of all melee skills. So that's plus 8 levels there. We are getting plus 3 from our amulet, and then I have a couple, this is also like a mana increasing thing, far from a perfect amulet. And then on our gloves, we have another 2, right? So we have 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then we have even more, I guess, right? No, plus 13, okay. So that's why this damage is so high on that. Getting plus 13, and I think you get plus 13 to basically everything, but the issue is on these, it's just like a small percent increase based on your weapon. This is its own independent scaling thing. So it really, really does scale really like super fast. So now if we take a look at the passive tree, what I'm doing here, I am going Titan. Obviously Warbringer is like the totem guy, but honestly, I think just having 50% increase of small passive skills is just better than having the totem thing do other stuff, because this greatly increases the area of effect of your attacks, and it greatly increases the damage of your attacks and the attack speed, and you know, everything. Every stat is just better when you have hulking form. Now another one you could consider here is you get these increase the area of effect of your slam attacks, and this makes it so every time your slam, your totem does an attack, there's a 20% chance for it to do an additional attack. So this is one of the most visually overstimulating abilities you can get, like especially when you start getting 4 or 5 totems. This will just like absolutely, just the explosions are already insane, and this will make them even more insane. However, I'm probably going to go for the 15% more life here instead of the damage, because my damage feels relatively sorted against nearly everything I'm fighting. I don't feel it is super neat. Like maybe I'll switch my mind, but right now I just want a little bit more survivability. And 15% more maximum HP is good, especially because we're going to end up getting life on our gear. So our life is going to go up quite a lot, actually, I think. I think we should be able to pass 3,000 life, which is still not very high when you're looking at people with 20,000 shields. But so this is one of the things I want to point out by why totems are so strong. And what I learned, why I like playing other classes and other builds, because it kind of teaches me, right? So here, this increases totem damage. I'm like, okay, this is the main way to increase totem damage. So I ended up taking the totem damages. But what I found out as I was doing it is actually increasing your melee damage also increases your totem damage, because it's considered an attack. And then also increasing your, there's a couple more here. Increasing your area attack damage. Attack area damage also increases the slam. So this increases your totem, this increases your totem, area damage, melee damage. Then there's also totem damage, and then attack speed, right? Attack speed will also increase the attack of your totems, basically, right? You have 4% attack speed, that'll increase your totems. You could hold shift to kind of see what'll affect it. But if you look at like basically just the word damage, right? Almost all of these will affect, the ones that are weapon specific won't, but anything that makes, like, you could, even the empowered attacks would, if you find a way to empower it. 12% increased area attack damage and 7% increased area of effect of attacks, right? I mean, this would just be very strong. So it's like there's almost an infinite amount there's more nodes than you could possibly get that increase your damage. Like you could even get this 50% increased damage, but you lose attack speed. I actually think this probably isn't that good for like the totems, but like it all increases your damage, even if it, but so you have to really make a choice. How do you want to increase your damage? Because almost all of these will do it, right? I'm going for these nodes next because this gives you attack speed and physical damage, right? So that's going to give me another 1,000 more damage, more damage, more damage, more damage, more damage. You've seen the Freakazoid video. So I'm kind of deciding how I want to finish this build off. You can see I came over here because actually one of the craziest ways to increase the damage for this is to just increase your it might even be hard to see these numbers, I apologize, but increasing your accuracy. So I basically was strength stacking. However, I've decided to go a little bit into dexterity because my accuracy rating was just so low that it actually just, the totem was only hitting like 50% of the time, and I couldn't even notice because it was just using so many explosions. But by just increasing this, it's now up to like 80%, and it's greatly increased its projected damage per second. Probably don't need this intelligence node anymore if I'm being honest. But yeah, this is basically the build that I'm going right now. I am level, well, I already forgot what level I am. Level 73. So I have maybe another 10 more points coming in. I actually don't know if I've cleared all of them from the campaign, so not that many. This is pretty much completed, I think. I have to decide where I'm going next. Right now, I plan on getting these 4, and then maybe I want to go and just polish off with some armor, because armor is going to be survivability for my character, like even if it's not good. maybe there's like a, in fact, if anyone has like good ideas, like I'm a new player. I'm just trying to figure out how things, how I do things. There is one where you could just like, I think you could convert all damage you take into fire damage, or is that you deal all fire damage? Okay. Yeah, okay. So that one's you just deal fire damage. But if you could find ways to convert like some of the damage you're taking into an element, especially through gear, that'll greatly increase your physical damage reduction. But I'm just going all in on armor because I'm already on this side of the tree. A lot of the nodes are going to be pretty good as well. Yeah, I mean, again, there's just like, when I was playing the minion witch, I felt like I ran out of nodes I cared about pretty quick. And this one, I'm like, if they gave me 50 more levels, I would still not run out. But yeah, this one was a pretty big one. All this area damage. I really, really value getting the area of effect for attacks. It doesn't increase my damage. So I could unspec, you know, respec all of the area of effect nodes and just bring my attack from 6 meters to down to maybe 5 meters or 4 meters and then have way more damage. But right now for clearing maps, I just like having the thing. So that's basically the passive tree. The gear, again, is not as important because it's not very good, but you just want the level to melee skills. That's the only thing that scales the damage of your totems. Now, one thing I think super late game, you are going to want to come over here to the Giant's Blood. You could wield two-handed axes in one hand, but triple the attribute requirement. This is a rich man's node here. So you can get it because you need triple the stat requirement. It's very difficult to actually equip two-handed weapons. You have to use weaker two-handed weapons. However, if you go to like a trade website, you could find low-level strength requirement two-handed weapons with up to +7 on your skills. So I'm at +4. I could get another 6 points in the skills on this, bring this up to 35 just by getting these stronger weapons. But some of them cost like 20, 30 divine plus, right? Like people know what they have when they have these are not cheap gems. So I do think if you get into the late game, you definitely want to spec into this because it'll make your damage go insane. However, the mana cost is going to be absurd, and I'm not quite sure how to solve that yet. But yeah, so that is where I'm at on the nodes. The weapons, my survivability is still pretty low, but I am going to show you a gameplay here of exactly how it goes, but kind of just like to get the idea, like when we're actually going all out, you know, right? Like, right. So you can just see like all these explosions kind of go crazy. And it's like, it's just pretty darn easy. All right. I figured what better way to show off the build than to do a logbook map, because it's just a bunch of mobs. And if I die, you won't see it. So problem solved. This is a level 70 logbook, and then 27% remnants, 10 additional chest markers. Anyway, we're just going to jump into it to see exactly how we do. You'll be able to see a visual demonstration of how the build actually works. Once enemies start appearing. There we go. Yeah, you can see there's a lot of visual clutter. I actually don't think I've seen a blue excavation chest. I think I've only found the white one so far. This is only my second logbook I've done, so I actually don't know how hard it's going to be. I don't know if... I'm not good at... Logbook is good at making you go all in, right? Because you're just like, oh man, I can get everything. Oh, careful. Took one hit there. Again, that is our big weakness. We're very strong, but we're very easy to kill. And this is 16 bombs. There was a couple bombs that didn't go perfectly according to plan, where it just didn't really fit. But this should still be a pretty good... We got like plus 400% experience though, and I'm actually quite excited for that. What is that? There's something up there. Let's turn these off. Oh, I think that's my own item that I'm like freaking out about. I thought we did. We'll come back and we'll explore all that. So yeah, I'm following the way I did the bombs. I did go down there, which sucked, but at the same time, like you see, our damage is so good, and this isn't even the max damage. This is the max radius. Which, if I'm actually going up against monsters, then I typically want to do something different here. But yeah, I mean, look at this. Look at the radius on these things. It's been kind of absurd. So I think we're not in danger of dying. I did try to make this as hard as I could. There was one node that I didn't take that I had an opportunity to that made them immune to physical damage, and I'm like, you know what? Let's not ruin our lives. There we go. I think that does it at that point. So yeah, that was a level 70, 16 bombs. I mean, really, it was no problem at all. You could see the weaknesses, right? We got hit once and lost over half our life, and I had to use a bunch of mana potions. But I think that is, again, mostly because our gear is very bad still. Like, our resistances are not even all at the 30s yet, but they're getting there. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and loot all this, and we'll get back to the video. All right, so there's the rundown of my second character build and how I'm doing it. Again, I don't recommend this for a first-time character. I think it actually, you're going to need to solve a lot of problems and get a lot of gear that is going to be hard to find in a solo self-found thing, or if you don't have any resources and currency. So probably save this to your second build like I did. But so far for maps, this has been way easier than even my minion witch, because I can attack from so far away and do so much damage. Like, I don't care about hallways, right? Like, I can attack there, there. Especially like when there's things that are far away. Like, you could hit here, 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 all at the same time really easily, and the damage is just destroying all of these guys. And then for bosses, right, you switch into your super powerful stuff, and then you just go 1, 2, 3, and then you smack it. Smack, 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 and then you just kind of mash mana potions and keep casting these, you know? And they'll go down before you know it. But yeah, guys, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Purplatypus is Purplatypus. I'll see you on the flip-flops. Bye!